Hey friends, and welcome to Kate Casts On. If you're new here, my name is Caitlin, and I'm a knitter, spinner, sewist, and sometimes quilter based out of the Pacific Northwest. Today, I am talking all about my spring knitting and sewing plans. So grab your craft of choice, settle in, and let's get started. I don't know about where you guys are located, but here in Oregon, the daffodils are starting to bloom. My irises are starting to sprout up out of the ground, and signs of spring are on the way. So figured it's time to start thinking about what I want to make for the warmer weather seasons that are heading our way. Before I get into sharing all the fun patterns and projects I want to work on in the next few weeks, I want to take a second to say a few quick thank yous. First to Tashi from Stitches and Starlight. They were so kind in mentioning me in their latest video of knitting podcasts that they're recommending to people. So I know a lot of you are new and probably came from there. So if that's you as well, thank you very much. If you don't follow Tashi at Stitches and Starlight, you absolutely should. They're fantastic. They do a lot of knitting and spinning, and they've been doing some quilting lately as well, which has been really, really fun to watch and keep up with their projects. Also, I wanted to say thank you. I went to Rose City Yarn Crawl this last weekend, and one of you came up to me and said hi and just mentioned that you watched the podcast, and I realized afterwards I didn't think to grab your name, but I just wanted to thank you again. That really made my day. And yeah, I've just been feeling a lot of love from the knitting and spinning community lately. So just thank you so much. I really feel it. And it's been really, really wonderful. So anyway, we'll go ahead and get into the projects that I would like to work on. I'm going to separate it out by craft. So we're going to go through all of the knitting projects first, and then I'll mention the sewing projects afterwards. So if one or the other isn't your jam, you can skip ahead. I'll have chapters laid out. So let's go ahead and get into knitting patterns that I'm really excited about working up in the next few weeks. For all of these projects that I'm going to talk about today, I'm going to do my best to include like relevant or important information that might be helpful to you if you are interested in potentially working up one of these patterns as well. I'm going to be referencing my little notebook here, just an FYI, that's where I'm looking, but we'll be talking about like yarn weight or for sewing, fabric type, things like that, needle size, construction method, either the finished garment circumferences or your actual like body circumference that's included in the pattern, recommended ease, things like that. So hopefully that's helpful, and I will include them in a graphic next to me while I talk about the patterns so that hopefully it will be nice and easy to get the information you need. The first project that I would love to make this spring is the Sea Salt Tee by Atelier Caston. It is a sport weight garment, but it also recommends holding 2 light fingering weight yarns held double to get that sport weight. You could probably do either just fine. And the recommended needle size is US 4 or 3.5 millimeter. The design features set-in sleeves, so we'll have some nice sleeve shaping as well. And the finished garment circumferences in the pattern range from 32 inches to 64 inches, and they recommend between 1 and 4 inches of positive ease. One other really fun feature about this pattern that I really love is the samples, in some cases, have contrasting colored hems, which I just think is so, so cute. I am going to be knitting mine up in Sandnes Tin Line in the color 4372 Deep Burgundy. It's just a lovely deep burgundy, truly. And it's just really, really beautiful. I'm very excited. I'm going to be holding this double to meet gauge. And I'm not sure if I'm going to do the contrasting colored hems or not. I think they're really, really pretty and I would like to. But I didn't buy a specific color to do that with. I do have some Tin Line scraps. I think it's maybe dark blue gray is the color that I have some scraps of. It's like a dusty navy blue that I could use and I think would look pretty nice with this color, but we'll just see. But this is kind of a color that I don't have in tee form in my wardrobe, so this would be really nice this spring. All the finishings on the tee are like folded hems, and so there's no ribbing or anything, and I think it just gives a really clean, polished look, and especially like with something like Tin Line or a summer yarn, it has a little bit more drape and a little bit more shine to it if you use like silk or linen or anything like that, or bamboo. So I think it will come together and just be like kind of basic in terms of construction and fit, but it's going to be a little bit elevated, I think, by the yarn choice and just using a little bit more drape and things like that. The second knitting pattern that I would like to knit this spring is the Umbria Summer Top by Cookie the Knitter. This is a fingering weight garment with a raglan style construction, and the recommended needle size is also a US 4 or 3 millimeter needle. So because it's using a fingering weight yarn with that needle size, it's going to be a little bit more open. The finished garment measurements at the bust range from 32 inches to 59 inches, and they also recommend between 1 and 4 inches of positive ease. This is also a really fun pattern because it includes, it's like a cardigan style, so it has these really lovely button details that go up the front that I think just add a really nice little detail and make it something a little bit more special. I'm actually going to be frogging a previously knit garment and reclaiming the yarn. I just don't wear the previous garment as much as I thought I would, and I think maybe the yarn choice wasn't the best for that specific project that I knitted up with, but I think it will work really well for the Umbria Summer Top. And so I'm going to be using Knitting for Olive Pure Silk in the color Putty. This is just like a leftover skein that I have. It's a really nice soft gray that's just really light and airy, and I think it will work really well. So I have a whole leftover skein here, and I have plenty of yarn in that previously knit garment. So that's on my list to kind of frog and reclaim that yarn, process it, steam it, make sure it's all nice and ready to be knit up again. But then I will be ready to knit the Umbria Summer Top. I'm also really excited because I was doing some button shopping for some other projects that I have on my list, and I stumbled across some buttons that I think will work really well for this project. They're just these really, really sweet kind of periwinkle gray blue glass buttons, or glass feeling buttons. I don't know if they're actually glass, but they have a little bit of shine to them that I think will pair really, really well with this yarn. Just a nice little pop of color along the front. And I think, yeah, it'll just be really cute. So I'm very excited about that. I'm looking forward to knitting up this shirt. I've actually knit a summer tank a few years ago, I think now, that has buttons down the front. And I was so, so proud of this. This was a self-drafted tank top that I made. But I was really proud of it because I didn't really want to knit flat the entire time. That was part of it. But also I was worried about gaping in the buttons potentially because that was a negative ease garment. And so I actually knit the whole thing in the round and then did an applied I-cord on top in the center right here, and then just sewed on some faux buttons essentially. And it really does look pretty realistic, but there's no gaping or anything like that. And I was able to knit in the round. And so I did consider potentially doing that and trying to mod this pattern so that I could knit in the round and just kind of do a faux button seam up the front. And I did see that one person in Ravelry actually has done that modification. And I don't know, I'm kind of going back and forth. Right now I'm leaning towards just knitting it up as the pattern states. And if there is like gaping that I really don't like, I could just kind of do a mattress stitch and kind of close it up afterwards. But it is not a negative ease garment like the previous one I knit. So I'm not even sure that I might just be inventing a problem in my head. So we'll just see. I'll probably just go with whatever I'm in the mood for. If I'm in the mood for following a pattern, I'll just knit it to pattern. If I'm in the mood for doing a little bit of hacking and modifications, I'll probably knit it in the round. We'll see. But I'm very, very excited to get the Umbria Summer Top knit up. The next pattern that I would love to knit up is Maggie Vest by Petite Knit. This is a DK weight vest, also knit on US 4 or 3.5 millimeter needles. It obviously does not have sleeves. It's a sleeveless vest, but the construction of it is similar to a drop shoulder pattern where you knit the back panel flat and then pick up stitches for your shoulders and knit those down and then eventually join under the arm. This is also a cardigan style vest, so it has buttons down the front as well. So you never join in the round, you will be knitting flat, but you join the fronts and the back panels together under the arms. The finished bust circumferences in this pattern range from 33.5 inches to 61.5 inches, and Petite Knit recommends 2 inches of positive ease. I am very excited about this because I'm going to be using Kelborn Woolen's Scout for the first time. I've never used this yarn before, but I've heard so many wonderful things, so I'm really excited to give it a try. I picked this up at the Rose City Yarn Crawl. It's the color, what is it? Juniper Heather. Just a really nice, kind of cool toned evergreen color that I think will work really well for this vest for me. As far as the buttons go, I'm going to be using, I think, just some like pretty basic tortoiseshell resin buttons, but I have some time to make that decision if I want to do something different. But I'm so excited to get this cast on. I had never even felt Scout in person before. So going into, I bought this from For Yarn's Sake up in the Portland area. And they had a really great selection of yarn in general in that store, but tons of colors of Scout and Camper and even Germantown from Kelbourne Woolens. And it was really nice to be able to feel those yarns for the first time. I can definitely see a lot of these in my future, but it's just so squishy and surprisingly very soft. And I think it will just work really well for this project. The next pattern that I'm considering knitting up this spring is the Marseille sweater by Petite Knit. This is also a DK weight pattern. Knit on US 6 or 4mm needles, and it has a drop shoulder construction. It's a full sweater. The bust circumferences of the finished garment in this pattern measure from 43 inches to 64 inches, and there's about 10 inches of recommended positive ease. I am going to knit this sweater at some point this year. I know that. I have the yarn already, and I'm very excited about it. I'm not sure if I'm going to be in the mood to knit this before the weather gets too much warmer. We'll see. I do tend to knit the occasional like sweater during warm weather months, but typically in the beginning, I'm more excited about tees and tanks and just kind of like changing it up a little bit. So we'll see if I want to kind of cast that on and do that before the weather gets too warm. I'm still working through my latest sweater project, which is the 1988 cardigan by Hannah Kim. And I think that that will probably take a few more weeks. So I don't know if I'll be in the mood to do another sweater after that or not, but it will be happening at some point this year. I'm going to be using Knitting Yarn DK from Pearl Soho in the color Ivory Gray as my main color. And then I'm going to pair it with some fun hand spun that I did last fall using fiber from Wee Chickadee as the stripes. And I just think it'll be a very classic, really beautiful sweater. I'm really excited to see how the hand spun variations come out in the stripes and just like the kind of color variations that we'll see. So yeah, that will be a sweater that gets knit up this year. I think if I knit it up this spring, that will probably be my last sweater for a while. And give myself a month or two off from full warm sweaters to just focus on some other garments, but we'll see. I'm very excited about it and I would love to cast it on, but I'm also feeling the tug towards more practical warm weather knits. If you've been around for a while or watched my 2026 knitting goals video, you'll know that one of the things I would really love to do this year is do more self-drafted projects. So this next one is one of those. I would love to make a self-drafted scrappy vest. I have knit with Knitting for Olive many times over the years, and I have tons of scraps and leftover skeins from them, and I would love to kind of combine them to create this really fun, stripy, scrappy vest and do some self-drafting for it. I did already swatch for this project, so I will show you that in a second. But essentially I'm holding 2 strands together to get a DK weight yarn. I knit my swatch on US 6 or 4mm needles, and I'm pretty happy with the fabric that it made. So I think that's what I will move forward with. And I'm doing it similar to the Maggie vest where you knit the back panel flat, pick up stitches for the shoulder panels. And then on this one, I will join in the round under the arms. That's the construction I'm planning. I don't totally know the fit I want, but I think I'm leaning somewhere around 6 inches of positive ease. And yeah, I'm holding 2 strands of Knitting for Olive together, which is allowing me to have some more fun color combinations and transitions. So this is the swatch that I've put together. And really, this was like a giant experiment for me. I was trying to not only figure out gauge and make sure that I liked the fabric, but I was also trying to figure out what colors I liked paired together, what colors I liked next to each other, how I wanted to transition between colors. So there's a lot of testing in this swatch, and there are things that I like and things that I don't like. But essentially, I think I'm pretty sold on this section of the swatch being like a pretty good system. I have kind of a very subtle transition between stripe colors. It's just one row where I hold one yarn from one stripe and one yarn from the other together to kind of give it a hazy transition just for one row, just a little bit. But I thought that that was a nice detail. And I think overall I like the yarn combos and everything in this section. At the beginning, there were definitely a few things that I did not like about it. I played around with like a 2-row transition between stripes and doing like higher contrast colors together. And I'm not sure that I love the look of that. And then I'm also debating, maybe it's just I don't necessarily like them right next to each other, or maybe it's just that the swatch isn't big enough and maybe if there was more of it, I would like it more. But I'm not sure I'm sold on like the orange and the blue right next to each other. It feels very high contrast since they're opposite on the color wheel. It's just a lot. So I don't know. Definitely some fun stuff to figure out still, but yeah, I'm just trying to approach this project with an experimental mindset and just play around and see what works. I think in a project like this, where it's so scrappy and there's so many colors going on, there's a certain level of craziness that is just going to happen, and that's kind of the point. So I'm just trying to embrace experimenting and kind of embrace the chaos a little bit and just have some fun with it. Worst case scenario, like these are all yarns that have projects that I wear and love, and they're just kind of leftovers and are just sitting in storage. So if nothing else, it's just a project to have some fun with, get some yarn out of stash, and just see what we come up with. So this is a project that is also on my mind for the next few weeks this spring. I also have some hand spun lace weight yarn in stash that I spun up at the end of 2025 that I've been trying to find the perfect project for. And I think I would like to knit the Elodie shawl by Polka Knits with this yarn. It's this really beautiful like brown and green and orange fractal spin. This is using fiber from Wonderland Dye Works, and it's their color Leaf Collecting. And I'm so proud of this yarn. It's a merino and silk blend, so it's gonna be very drapey, and I got down to a lace weight, like I said. So I have a good amount of yardage there, and I would love to just do something special with it and just, I'm very curious to see how the yarn is going to knit up. So I'm feeling kind of antsy about wanting to do something fun with it. And I've been browsing lots of shawl patterns on Ravelry, and I think I really, really like the Elodie shawl. It is a lace weight shawl knit on US 6 or 4mm needles, so very open gauge. And it's also knit from tip to tip. So if you've knit the Sophie shawl or the Sophie scarf or the Jaunty shawl, it's similar to that, where it's easier to know your halfway point and then like start decreasing when you're halfway through your skein of yarn. So I think that that will fit and be very appropriate for hand spun, where I have an estimate on yardage, but I'm not 100% sure. If you were to knit this shawl up to pattern, it's supposed to have a 75-inch wingspan, which is a good size. I'd be very happy with that. But the pattern also recommends 600 yards of yarn. And I think, according to my estimates, I'm pretty sure I have like over 900 yards in this skein. So I will end up with a larger shawl if I try and use most of this in that shawl, which I would think would be really, really lovely. Because I have so much more yardage, I have 33% more yardage than the pattern recommends, I might size down my needle to like US 5 or a US 4. I still want it to be very open and drapey, but I don't want it to be so large that it's overwhelming. So we'll see. I honestly don't have a ton of experience knitting shawls. I did the Sophie scarf once, and I've done a few Jaunty shawls, but really that's my experience with shawls. So if there are any experienced shawl knitters out there that want to give me some tips, definitely feel free to do so. This pattern has a really beautiful lace and cable design that I think is just lovely. And it has some texture and detail to it, but I think it will work really well for the hand spun, where there are going to be color transitions and changes. Like the lace and cable motif isn't so crazy that that's just going to feel very overwhelming. I don't think. I think it will work really well together. So that's kind of what I'm thinking for that hand spun yarn there. I also have a goal for 2026 where I would like to build my hand knit sock collection. So I have a few sock patterns that I would like to work on in the next few weeks. I'm just going to run through these pretty quickly. The first is the Quilty Cabin Socks by Horse Feather Fiber Arts. I have some yarn in stash that I think would work really well for this. And yeah, it's just a fun, beautiful little colorwork motif. I've actually never done colorwork socks before, so I think it will be a fun little addition and just something different for my sock drawer. Next is the Oxbow Socks by Drea Renee Knits. These socks are always on my to knit list. They're one of my favorite sock patterns ever. And I've knit, I think 4 or 5 pairs now. They're an all-time favorite for me. So I would love to do another pair of Oxbow socks. And then also there is a pattern, actually that I believe Rachel mentioned on those Twins Who Knit. That they're testing right now, and that is the Floris Socks by Sunday Morning Knits. So I couldn't find that pattern on Ravelry, so I'm assuming that it's still in testing, but if it releases soon, I would love to knit up some of those. It's just like a really simple and dainty pointelle pattern for socks, and it does have a ruffle on the top. I don't know that I would do the ruffle, but I really like the little delicate pointelle design, and it also has some like ribbing texture to it that I think will make a really, really good fitting sock. I always look for socks that have a little bit of ribbing to them. I have a really, really bold and bright red colored sock yarn in stash that I think would look really cute with, you know, just like dainty little pointelle motifs. So that is all I have for knitting plans for spring. Honestly, the list of projects is probably a little bit ambitious, but that's okay. If they bleed into summer a little bit, I'm fine with that. And if some of them I just pick up and do in the fall, that's also fine. But it always just feels really good, you know, to have so much inspiration and so many things that you're excited about making. That's always a nice feeling. So I'm feeling very excited about them all right now, and we will just make them at the pace that makes sense for us in the moment. But now I just have a few sewing patterns that I would love to share with you, things that I would like to make in the next few weeks. First is the Carl shirt by Sewing Machina. That's actually what I'm wearing right now. I have sewn 2 of these already. This would be my 3rd, but it's just a really nice, super oversized button-up shirt that I love wearing in the warm weather months. It's huge, it's flowy, it's really easy to style. It's just really lovely. This pattern recommends woven fabrics, and in addition to fabric, you will also need some interfacing and then buttons for it as well. And I looked for kind of a difficulty rating for this sewing pattern and didn't really see one. I personally would probably rate it as advanced beginner to like early intermediate stage. That's what I would consider myself at in terms of skill level with sewing garments, and it's probably the most technical of all the patterns I've sewn up so far. Obviously, I have done it successfully, and there also is a video tutorial with this pattern, which helps a lot. But there were just a lot of new techniques that I had to learn when I first sewed this up, but you could definitely do it. The body measurements that they have sized this pattern for is a 30-inch to a 60-inch full bust measurement. They recommend 23 inches of positive ease in this, so there is a lot of wiggle room there. Actually, my first Carl shirt, I thought 23 inches, that's crazy. I'm gonna like cut it down to 15. And I don't wear that one as much as I wear this one. This one has the full 23 inches of positive ease, and I love this one so much more. So I was surprised, but I really, really love how much ease it has. I'm gonna be sewing this version of the Carl shirt up using some fabric from Matchy Matchy Sewing Club. This is their cloud linen in the color Asparagus. Just a really nice like meadow green color that I think is just absolutely lovely, and just a really vibrant, happy color. I'm very excited to have a big old oversized shirt in this fabric. And then I also picked up some buttons from my local yarn store that I thought would fit really well. It's just a nice, slightly darker green shell button. Let's see if I can hold the button up next to the fabric so you can see them together without my fingers getting in the way. But it's just slightly darker of a green, but still in the same like tone and hue. So I think that those will pair really well. But yeah, I'm very excited to have another Carl shirt in my closet. The next sewing pattern that I'm going to be making is the Sandra skirt by Sid Graham. This is a really beautiful A-line skirt pattern with an elasticated waist, pockets, and also optional godets, which add a little bit more volume at the bottom of the skirt. And Sid rated this for confident beginners. The pattern is sized for hip measurements from 32 inches to 66 inches. Those are your actual body measurements. And she recommends a lightweight woven fabric, especially if you do a lining, which she has instructions on how to do a lining. I'm going to be using a really lovely dead stock fabric that I got from Blackbird. This is the Harmony Viscose Georgette in the color Bluestone Buttercup. It is 100% viscose, but it's dead stock, so that's great still. And it's really, really flowy and drapey, and I think it will make a really nice skirt. Let's kind of unfold this for a second so you can see that it is like decently transparent and very, very drapey and flowy. So I did go ahead and also pick up some lining fabric from Blackbird as well. This is also 100% viscose. I figured it would be fine to just use the same kind of fabric content for the whole skirt. But this is viscose poplin in the color Ivory. Both of these fabrics are very lightweight, so I think that they will work well together. But I am planning on doing the version of the skirt with godets. It's all going to be in that blue and yellow fabric on the top. I'm not going to use two different kinds, but it's going to be with godets and then a lining, like I said, and pockets. So I'm very excited about that. The last thing that I want to sew up this spring is the Ashton top by Helen's Closet. It's a really lovely A-line tank top designed for woven fabrics. It has bust darts and also sizing for B and D cups, so it just results in a really well-fitting garment. This will be the 5th one that I make, so I absolutely love this pattern. It is my summer staple. It's just absolutely lovely and really easy to style with a lot of different things. The pattern is rated for advanced beginners and is sized for full bust circumferences ranging from 29 inches to 58 inches. Again, that is your actual body measurement. My plan for this one is to sew it using some just like fabric that I have in stash that I've actually already used for several other projects. It's Brussels washer in this like off-white color, so it's a linen viscose blend fabric. I actually already have an Ashton top in this fabric, but for this one specifically, I'm going to try and play around with modifying the neckline a little bit. So normally the Ashton top has a pretty high neck, and I absolutely love that for most of my wardrobe, but I'm kind of craving one with a little bit of a lower neckline and also a little bit more of like a square neckline. I think that that would be really cute. I've never modified a sewing pattern like that. I've never like changed up a neckline before, so I think it will be pretty straightforward. I hope it will be pretty straightforward, but worst case scenario, like it's fine. This is just fabric that I have in stash that I have some extra of. So I'm not too worried about if it fails or not. It'd just be a fun experiment to try. But I think that with that slightly lower neckline, like maybe right here and a little bit more square shaped, in that off-white fabric color, I think it would pair really, really nicely with my Sandra skirt that I'm going to sew up with this fabric. And just be a little bit fancier of a top than just like the higher, more crew neck style neckline. So we'll see how that turns out. I'm excited to give it a shot. So those are all of my spring making plans. Like I said, they might just be a smidge ambitious, but that's okay. We'll just, you know, have some fun and make things and finish things at the pace that makes sense in the moment. I hope you had a nice time sitting down and chatting with me, that you found a lot of joy in whatever you've been working on, and maybe gathered some inspiration and ideas for things that you could make this spring. If you have any plans of things that you want to make in the next few weeks, I would love to hear about them in the comments below. If you haven't already, if you could take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel, that really helps me out, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.